Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time to come out tonight. My name is Patty Iman, and I'm the chair of the Chamber's Government Relation and Advocacy Committee. By day, I work for First American Title. I'm the St. Joseph area manager. So we appreciate you coming out here tonight. For many years, I've had the opportunity to experience community engagement firsthand. I quickly learned that leadership is a key component in moving our community forward. So I want to commend you and congratulate you on your consideration of potentially running for public office. Welcome to Missouri Western State University. We'd like to thank Missouri Western for hosting us tonight. There's refreshments up here, so feel free to get up and help yourself throughout the evening. Tonight is session 3, and we have another great lineup of presenters for you. Our focus this evening is going to be on community engagement, partnerships, as well as challenges. Throughout the evening, each presenter will have some remarks, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers after they're done speaking. All of our speakers are part of the Community Alliance of St. Joseph, who is co-hosting the Leadership Academy in conjunction with the St. Joseph Area Chamber of Commerce. Just a quick note, restrooms are out the door to the right and on the left, so feel free to move about throughout the evening. Our first speaker is Marcy Bennett. Marcy's Executive Director of the St. Joseph Convention and Visitors Bureau. Marcy's been with the St. Joseph Convention and Visitors Bureau since 1993, serving as Executive Director since 1994. Excuse me. During her tenure, she received governor-appointed positions to serve on both the Missouri Lewis and Clark Bicentennial Commission and the Missouri Historical Records Advisory Commission. Marcy was also appointed to chair the Missouri Tourism Commission, which she served with distinction. St. Joseph retains its links to the past while looking forward to the future. Our city is home to 16 area museums, 12 annual festivals, amazing architectures listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the Kansas City Chiefs Summer Training Camp, and of course the Walter Cronkite Memorial. Visitors will also find great outdoor recreation throughout 48 parks, 26 miles of beautiful parkway, outdoor concerts, and arts culture unlike any other. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcy Bennett.
Ignore the first part about me. I think Steve must have called my mom because, I mean, what I've done is true, but the accolades are not needed. I do what I do for our community. And I have to tell you guys, I'm really proud of you for having an interest and having the go-to to get involved in public service. It's not pretty. It really isn't. But we need people like you with the passion and the desire to do the right thing and represent our community professionally and very well and to the best of your ability. So I thank you all first. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit, part of about me, but anyway, the other part that she left out is I'm the mother of 23-year-old twins, and I'm very proud of that. So we're actually the Buchanan County Tourism Board, but we DBA as the St. Joseph Convention and Visitors Bureau because our legal name, our job is to market outside the community. And if we said we're the Buchanan County Tourism Board, no visitor cares where Buchanan County is or knows where it is. So we DBA as the St. Joseph Convention and Visitors Bureau and have done that. Our legal name is the Buchanan County Tourism Board. We were founded in 1993 with a 0.1% general sales tax throughout the county to promote tourism. Most CVBs are funded by hotel motel tax, but not in this community. The hotel motel tax goes to the city. We are funded by a general countywide sales tax. So I like to say you buy a stick of gum in Buchanan County and 1/10 of 1 cent of that tax goes to promote tourism, which gives us a lot more leeway to not just promote the hotels, although we do along the way. I mean, obviously we do. We are the professional marketing organization for our community. The direct impact, I mean, this is amazing. The direct impact of tourism spending in Buchanan County last year was over $180 million. And it's sustained over 4,500 jobs. That's not a number that we make up or we have some professional consulting company come in or whatever. Those are direct numbers from the SIC codes as reported to the Missouri Department of Revenue. That's how they determine, the state of Missouri determines economic spending. Our state legislature determined 17 SIC codes, standard industrial codes, that tell you what tourism spending is in your county. So we can go through and we can compare Buchanan County to Jackson County to Livingston County to any other county and see what the difference is. You know, if we hired some consultant, they'd have a different matrix and a different this and that, and we couldn't compare with Jasper County or anything like that. So we basically stick with that, and the number is 180 million in 2016. That's incredible. As your Buchanan County Tourism Board, CVB, our job is not to go around and promote ourselves and say, here locally, oh, we're great, here's what we do. Our job is to promote St. Joseph outside of the county to get visitors to come in and spend money in the county. And over the years, always, we have local advertising companies, local media that say, well, you need to market here in the community. And maybe we probably should have, because a lot of people don't really know who we are or what we do, but that's not our mandate. Our mandate is to go outside the community, get people excited about St. Joseph, bring them in, have them spend their money, have a great time, and leave. We don't want to, Dr. Newhart, educate their children. That's not my job. That's his job. We don't want to build streets for them. Bruce, that's your job. That's not our job. Our job is to get them here, get them excited about St. Joseph, spend their money, have a wonderful time, go back and tell other people about it, and come back for more. So, you know, we're kind of at a catch-22 because people don't really realize who we are or what we do, because we haven't spent much of your taxpayer dollars here in town patting ourselves on the back, because I just don't believe that that's what we need to be doing. Some of the major marketing efforts of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, Buchanan County Tourism Board, are we do direct marketing to attract groups like sporting events, conventions, motor coach groups, and an example of that is recently we worked with Parks and Rec, and we went out and did a huge bid for the ASA, or now USA Softball National Tournament for 2019. And we were awarded it. It was so cool. So in 2019, that one effort will generate over $550,000 in economic impact and bring in over 1,500 room nights, which is heads in beds, people staying in hotels generating hotel revenue. And we have a really great chance to get another 2 of them in 2020. We've been kind of told we're going to get it, but we're not supposed to say that, so don't tell. So on the group marketing level, those are the things we do. We do a lot of leisure marketing as well. We have a comprehensive website. If you've not been to it, you need to go stjomo, stjomo.com, which has a huge calendar of events that is mostly visitor related. It's not, the cities has a lot more of the things, Mary, that, you know, are going on within the city, but ours is, we target it to the visitor related things. We've got a big social media platform. We do a lot of electronic advertising, and we've actually made a shift in the past few years to more electronic advertising, like on Facebook and those kinds of things, from your AAA Traveler and all that, because most people are getting that stuff online. But we still do quite a bit of that. We do about $110,000 of that kind of advertising a year. I was working on the budgets today, and I know. We do print media. We do a visitor's guide, which you guys are probably familiar with, that we distribute all over the state, all over the region, and here locally. We do distribute this locally. Luckily, we have it. I mean, our biggest purveyor of this is Heartland. Heartland has it in all their places, and I mean, they're calling us all the time to bring more cases, more cases. It talks about our museums, and it's really, it's not just based upon listings, it's kind of content based. So it talks about stories and things to get people excited about St. Joseph. And not just, okay, well, here's a restaurant here and here's a restaurant there. It tells the stories about that. We do a lot of public relations, which is working with travel writers for the different museums and electronic media, where we invite them to town and we host them and we take them around and we tell them the stories, and then they go back and write about it. One of the big things that happened with that, and I'm jumping way ahead of myself, during the Eclipse, we did a lot of public relations with those meeting planners, or not meeting planners, with those travel writers and with the media. We ended up garnering, and this is all that we could track, I'm sure it's a whole lot more than that, the visibility, if you had to pay for it, that we received on national media, both print and electronic, was over $2.5 million for your community. You could not afford to buy that. And that's one of the things that we do, is we try and work with all of that. We also provide 2 visitor centers. We have one out at East Hills Library for the folks that are staying in the hotels on the east side of town, coming off the interstate. Lots of information with a personal kind of travel advisor to help them. And then the downtown location. We're really, we have one of the things that we are the most proud of is we have a local cooperative marketing program where with our local nonprofit visitor attractions, say the Pony Express, the Patey House, Rubidoo Row, the Albright Kemper, that are open year round, we have a 70-30 matching program, which we pay 70% of the cost. They only pay 30% for them to do the same as our mission, market outside the community to bring people in. It's been an educational process with them, because at first they thought, oh, we're just advertising here in town. It's like, no, if you want any of this money, you advertise outside. And to date, since we started the program in 1995, we've invested over $2.5 million in that program with your local attractions. We also are involved in statewide things, as I mentioned. Your St. Joe CVB, Buchanan County Tourism Board, functions as the headquarters of the Pony Express Region Tourism Commission, which is a 10-county Northwest Missouri group. So we bring them in and we talk to them about, we don't talk to them about tourism, we let them talk amongst themselves about tourism and what they need to do and what they think they can do and how they can partner with each other. That is just a wonderful thing, but there's nobody out there that can pull that together. So we just pull it together and let them do it, and we organize that. Same thing, we are the headquarters for the Missouri Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, which is 31 CVBs around the state, including St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, Joplin, Chillicothe, Sedalia, Warrensburg, the big ones, the little ones. And we function as their headquarters and kind of their executive director position. So it gives you all in St. Joseph a lot of visibility throughout the state. We've got a little group called the Museums of St. Joseph. When I first started, the museums in St. Joseph wouldn't even talk to each other, let alone go into a room with each other. But now we've got most of them, not all of them, but we have most of them that come together on a monthly basis. They put together programming. They have cooperative things that go on, and it's awesome. We don't try and run it. We just kind of administer it so that they have some kind of stability with that. We do get involved in product development a little bit. They mentioned we were the leaders in putting together the community effort for the Lewis and Clark commemoration, if any of you are old enough to remember that. It was a few years ago. The Civil War commemoration and the Eclipse. And the Eclipse was the biggest one that we took on, and we had no idea what we were getting into when we did that. Did produce the Eclipse guide. We pulled together all the agencies, and Mary will tell you, we were kind of pulling the city together, the emergency management, the county, all kinds of organizations to make that come off really, really well. And it did, even though we didn't get to see much. But it's okay. I'm putting a trip together to Argentina in 2019 because there's going to be one in 19, and I kept a couple of glasses back. So anybody that wants to go, let me know. And I already told you about the economic impact from the social media of the Eclipse. What we really do is entice visitors to our community to help them enjoy the experience and for us to help them understand the experience. And that's one of the reasons why we've taken on something that is controversial to some people, but I don't really think I have not talked to anybody except for like 2 people that are against the move that we made with our offices from 109 South 4th, where we had been for 23 years. That was our downtown office. It was not handicap accessible, had no public restrooms, no parking, no visibility, and our board about 4 years ago determined, and really bad maintenance, and we rented, so we didn't have a whole lot to do about that. Our board made the conscious decision to start looking for a new location. And we must have looked at 8 or 10 different locations downtown to try and go into a building that was existing, but none of them had the handicap accessibility, the parking, the visibility, the access in and out that was needed. And I'm telling you, I was standing with Don Evans and a couple of our board members in the mayor's building, right there at the old Chevrolet building, looking out, and there's this old abandoned Hardee's sitting there. And I'm going, what was I thinking? This would be a great spot right there at the apex to downtown. And I turned to Don Evans and I said, Don, who owns that? He said, I don't know, it's been closed for months. I said, well, find out. And so it took him 2 months. He had to call the Hardee's complaint line to finally find out who owned it. And it was some LLC out of New York City. And they didn't know where St. Joseph, Missouri was. They didn't care where St. Joseph, Missouri was. They didn't know anything about that piece of property and how important it is to downtown. So after some haggling back and forth, we were able to purchase it for $190,000. The county tore it down. We've had partnerships along the way with everybody from Moffett to put in some of the landscaping, those kinds of things. But I was told that about 6 months after we bought it, there was another fast food restaurant that would have paid $850,000 for it. Now, we would have made a huge profit, but I was not going to do that. We were not going to do that to our community. We were not going to allow, sure, we need fast food downtown. We need a McDonald's downtown, but we don't need it right there. That place is a very special, and to me, almost a hallowed space as you come into downtown. So, you know, we've been working on it, and for the past year, that's about all I've been doing, and that's not what I do. But now I know more about trusses and soil borings and EPA phase 1s and phase 2s than I ever wanted to know, or nor ever want to know again. But we are keeping the visitor center open on the east side. So if somebody tells you we're closing that one down, that is not true. That serves a different group of people than those coming downtown, where we can, on downtown, send them to our museum, send them to our riverfront, you know, and tell them more of the history of downtown and of our community. One of the exciting things that probably most of you don't know, if you're familiar with all of the murals on the buildings downtown that Sam Welty, the artist, has put in. We contracted with him to come in, and if you haven't been in our building, you need to come in. As you walk in, there's this huge wall And he's going to do a mural of the Missouri River as Lewis and Clark and Joseph Rubidoux would have seen it. It's going to be so cool. And then we're bringing the heroic size Joseph Rubidoux statue that is out at the visitor center downtown to put right in front of it. And he's going to be here next month doing the painting. So everybody pick out your paper and pencil. December 18th is a Monday afternoon from 3 to 6. We're going to have an open house, and he'll be up on his scaffolding doing his painting and talking to people, and it's just cookie and punch and coffee and water. But please come and join us and come and see your new visitor center. It's really pretty cool, and it's clean. It smells new. Our staff are very, very happy. I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything. I'm actually supposed to be at another meeting right now, but on the table over there by Steve, I have our visitors guides if you're not familiar with them. And if you want any for your businesses or your church or your school or whatever, let me know. We have cases of them. And my business card is over there as well. So please call me with any questions. And again, I salute you guys for being interested in going into public service. And anything I can do to help you with getting numbers and background about how important tourism is to this community, please let me know. I'd be happy to. Mr.
Before
Sue.
you leave,
Uh-huh.
the Eclipse numbers wasn't there like we thought, right?
It was over 100,000.
Yeah, but I mean, it was up. It wasn't.
Nobody knew what it
So-
was gonna be, yeah.
What did you end up doing with all the extra shirts and all that kind of stuff?
We sold them out. We were sold out.
So you,
Yeah,
if
we
we
ended
hadn't
up-
been up and we'd been looking like egg on our face. 'Cause we-
Oh, absolutely, just like Amazon looked like when they went out and sold all those glasses to people. And then they said they weren't the right solar whatever. And we had Black and Beach came up from Kansas City and bought 5,000 glasses from us. What was it, the Lee Summit School District bought 10,000 glasses from us because the ones they had bought from Amazon would not guarantee. We had people last minute, oh my gosh. We should have been charging a whole lot more for them, but we didn't. Other questions?
Marcy, what was the date on, was that the 18th you were saying about?
I think it's the 8th, yes, the 18th, on Monday, the 18th. Come down. It's going to be public. We're not going to spend a lot of money on sending out invitations and stuff, but just come down. It'll be in the paper.
What time?
From 3 to 6. It's kind of come and go. Maybe the parking garage will be open and you can park there. I'm kidding.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcy.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate it.
We had, are you kicking me out?
No.
Okay.
Got any
You had one?
questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I
I
didn't
think
see
you had one, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a question. The auditorium downtown and bringing the boat downtown. From your circles, what have you heard? Is it dead in the water? Is it,
It'd have to be in the water if it came downtown.
yeah?
I'm really not part of those discussions. We work closely with the city and with the Civic Arena people on bringing events to the Civic Arena. We converse with the people at the casino, but we really are not involved in any of their decision-making processes. You know, whatever we do, we'll promote. But I really don't know any details. I personally think it's kind of on hold, but I don't know. I have no idea.
The people you work with, like the NCAA girls tournament, I know
Right.
they had to do a lot of improvements to the Civic Center before they came here. Is that holding us back on getting, is that the number one thing, deterrent, why people don't want to come to St. Joe?
Oh, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. And Civic Arena is perfect for that kind of a, event, for basketball tournaments and all that. What it's not perfect for is for conventions, because it's an arena. It's great for basketball games and rodeos and all that kind of thing, but it's not some place that meeting planners anymore want to go and have their meetings like they did 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they would stay in the hotels out east and bus their people downtown. They won't do that anymore, because if they bus them downtown, they lose them. I mean, people want to go to their room, check their emails, do all their stuff. They're not going to ride a bus downtown, so.
How's our hotel numbers? Are we?
Oh, they're great. They're great. We just opened a brand new one this year. In fact, a couple of months ago, a Fairfield Inn and Suites, which was an $11 million investment in our community. And our occupancy is going really well, and I think we have inquiries about at least 1 or 2 more hotels, which we desperately need now that the Ramada's gone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, the
Yeah.
Ramada, so we're.
The only thing about the Ramada is it had lots of meeting space, and we need one that has meeting space, and that's really not what investors are doing right now. But
Thank you, Marcy.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Marcy,
guys.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry, I have to run. I was supposed to be somewhere else at 6 o'clock too.
Thanks so much. Great information. Okay, our next speaker is Steve Johnston, Director of Community Alliance of St. Joseph. So many of you know Steve, but he is a native of Kansas, graduate of Kansas State University with a marketing degree. Steve's lived in St. Joe for 40 years, and he certainly calls St. Joe his home. Steve has varied backgrounds in marketing and strategic planning, human resources, international sales, and operations management. He's got a passion for community service, and he currently serves on boards for the United Way, the Heartland Foundation, and the Missouri Western State University Foundation. Steve joined the Chamber in 2007, and in January of 2009 was selected to be the Director of the Community Alliance of St. Joseph. Steve Johnston.
Catch that real quick. So, hey, good evening, everyone, and thanks again for being here. This is the third series, so we appreciate your dedication. I do want to mention to you on the outset that, however, that if you were not able to attend the last session, we do have some information from the Missouri Ethics Commission that's available. So if you need that information, please check with me if you would before the evening. So, all right, Community Alliance of St. Joseph. As Patty pointed out, I was with the Chamber and still, of course, office in the Chamber, but Community Alliance is a leadership forum, if you will. It's a separate board of directors, a separate funding group, if you will, as opposed to the Chamber of Commerce. But we have some different missions. We're not totally engaged in economic development or the programming that the Chamber is. We have some very different missions overall. So again, our goal is to provide leadership forum to optimize our community's potential to maximize our successes and our quality of life. There we list the core values of the Alliance. We are subject to the Sunshine Law, so all of our meetings are open. Folks can attend. It's always open session as far as the Community Alliance is concerned. This represents the list of those folks who belong to the Community Alliance of St. Joseph. And so we have, from an educational perspective, we have the City of St. Joseph in Buchanan County. We have our 2 educational institutions, our St. Joseph School District, as well as Missouri Western State University, Mosaic Life Care, the Chamber of Commerce, and as Marcy just said, the St. Joseph Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we meet on a monthly basis to ensure that we're all connecting the dots. And we simply know that if we're not working together in unison, we're not going to be successful as a community. And so oftentimes we have discussions about priorities. What are priorities for our community? Some folks have to step back a little bit to refocus on a priority, but we know if we're not working together in tandem, then it's difficult to move forward. You know, our community and communities across America, it's very important that nobody's gonna move St. Joseph forward for us. We have to take on that challenge ourselves. It's our responsibilities as community leaders to make that happen overall. Several years ago, we went to Washington, D.C. As a community because our dollars in St. Joseph, our tax dollars in St. Joseph go to Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. in turn sends that money back to communities across the country based on priorities. When earmarks went away a few years ago, we said, okay, that process is no longer going to work. We need to look at a different avenue. So we established what we called our Big Five for the Community Alliance of St. Joseph. couple of our partners that are here tonight are going to address a couple of these very specifically and how the process works as we move forward. But one of our main goals is the 139th Airlift Wing of the Missouri Air National Guard. And you may say, well, gosh, why would that be a priority? Well, first of all, members of the 139th, the officials at the 139th Airlift Wing cannot advocate on behalf of themselves, whether it's on the local, the regional, the state, or on the national level. So it's our responsibility to advocate for those folks. We've made some significant improvements through a collaborative effort with our legislators in Washington, D.C. And again, you're going to hear some more highlights about that in just a few moments. But it's a growing entity in this community and a strong entity and a great positive partner that we have with our 139th Airlift Wing. Community survey, I want to talk about that in just a quick moment and share some information about the community survey. And then also before the evening's over, if you'll share with me if you'd like more information about the community survey, I can email that to you electronically. The government relations, probably 40, maybe 50% of my position is the government relations. So that's local, it's regional, it's state, and also on the national level as well too. So we simply know that if we don't have the voice of our elected officials, again, on all of those different levels, someone else is going to have their ear. So it's important to know that we have regular communications with all of our elected officials, again, in all of those various categories. Quite often, folks in Washington, D.C., unless we're reaching out to them, there's many communities in this state and the state of Missouri that are reaching out to them. So in order to get our fair share, it's important that we stay in touch and they know our goals and objectives. I'm very pleased to report that if Senator Blunt or Senator McCaskill or Congressman Gray walked in this door right now, they would tell me, Steve, I know this is what we need for the 139th Airlift Wing. This is what we need for the Missouri River levees. They're very knowledgeable and helpful. And we have a legislative group in Washington, D.C. who literally roll up their sleeves and go to work for us. And that's very, very important as we move forward. Public Service Leadership Academy that you're participating in right now. Jefferson City Partnership, we have several of our partners who participate in that partnership so that we have a voice in Jefferson City when we can't be there on a daily or a weekly basis. So we work with a group out of Jefferson City to help the communications channel. That doesn't mean we don't need to be in Jefferson City on a regular basis, and we are, but the day-to-day operations, we have that leadership group certainly available to us. Great Northwest Days at the Capitol is a regional event. In fact, that's coming up on February 5 and 6 in Jefferson City. I'm pleased to announce that Brant Shields, sitting right up here, Director of External Relations for Missouri Western State University, is chair of that event this year. I happen to be the Buchanan County coordinator of that event. We've got information we'd like to share with you on that particular event moving forward. But it's a regional opportunity, a chance to see legislative body, legislative leaders from throughout the entire state of Missouri. We've held a number of different community exchanges over the years. Our most recent one was a couple of years ago when we went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Now, why Sioux Falls, South Dakota? Gosh, it's twice the number of residents that we have in St. Joseph, Missouri. But 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they were exactly the same size as St. Joseph, Missouri. Now they're double the size of St. Joseph, Missouri. So we want to gain best practices from these folks and look for opportunities and exchange ideas on how we can move forward as a community. I mentioned the DC partnership and the DC fly-in. Again, a very important event. Annually, typically in late March, early April, we have about 25 to 35 folks from St. Joseph who assist in the Washington, D.C. fly-in. So our group is knowledgeable about opportunities. We visit with all of our legislative bodies. We've been in the Pentagon on numerous occasions, various facets of government, again, in an effort to promote our community. Agriculture, of course, is very important to St. Joseph as well as the entire region. So we've now got some great connections with the Secretary of Agriculture that we haven't had in the past. So those will be things we're pursuing as well too. Leadership is very important. Everything we do, whether it's the company or the organization you work for, whether it's a government agency or a representative, we always want to promote good, solid leadership. The Missouri River Levee, again, another one of our presenters is going to specifically talk about that and about the partnerships and the engagement and the persistence over a 4-year period to make that happen. And of course, ultimately, the taxpayers of St. Joseph, Missouri, with a 1/4-cent sales tax, sunsetted for 4 years, paid for the match, if you will, 65% government, 35% local match, to make that happen. It passed by 77%. The next day, the governor, that time Governor Nixon was in town, he said, "Steve, nobody passes a sales tax by 77%. How did you guys make that happen?" It takes a community pulling together to make those things work. Community image and appearance is an important factor for us as well, and so we'll be touching on that again in just a few moments. So, okay, I'd like to talk for just a moment now about the community survey. That's one that we listed up here in just a few moments. Now, the community survey in its entirety is like this entire notebook, okay? So, but this information is readily available to everyone in St. Joseph. It's listed on the City of St. Joseph website. It's listed in the Buchanan County website, and I'll be happy to email this information as well to you. So on your list, for session 3 today, at the bottom of that page is my email address and it's my phone number. So if you'd like to have an electronic copy of the community survey, you're welcome to that as well. But let's just touch on a couple of quick things. We started partnering with a company called ECT Institute out of Olathe, Kansas back in 2010. And ECT Institute is not a consulting firm. They are very simply pull data together so that we can make reasonable decisions as a body. Let's face it, the more information we have about a community, the smarter decisions that we can make overall. The survey has been very popular in St. Joseph, Missouri. We send the survey, randomly send the survey to 1,800 residents throughout St. Joseph and Buchanan County. Our response rate is 40%. That's almost unheard of to get 40% of those surveys back. Typically, if you're 8 or 10%, you're lucky. But that tells us that the residents of our community want input. They want to share information about through the community survey. And so we've been doing that on an every other year basis. So 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, and we'll be evaluating that here soon for 2018 as well. So there's a lot of information in here, but let me just point out a couple of slides. Oh, by the way, let me just go back. Sometimes we get comments from the public saying, "Well, gosh, you didn't survey people in Midtown," or "Gosh, what happened to South St. Joseph?" Well, if you look at these maps here, the largest of the two in the large yellow, in the dotted area there is the City of St. Joseph, and the balance is the county. So we survey residents from north, east, west, south, and Midtown in the survey. So no one is admitted, not allowed to participate in the survey process. Again, a 40%. So what that does is give us a confidence rate of about 3.5% to 4%. So it says if we did the exact same survey 100 times in our community, we get the exact same results, plus or minus 3.5% to 5%, somewhere in that range. So it does have statistical validity, which we think is really important. So you have this in front of you, and but I just wanted to touch base on a few things in terms of trends, okay? You see some pretty consistent trends throughout the entire process. So now, some of them are not as positive as we would like, but this is local information. So in terms of the barcodes here, you have 2010, 2014, and 2016. And you see there's some trends there that are developing overall. Now, as a community, can we take on all of this at one time? Absolutely not. There's too much information, but we have to develop priorities. What's most important for St. Joseph overall? So the survey includes information for the St. Joseph School District, for Missouri Western State University, for the arts and for culture. It talks about fire, police protection, and safety, and several different areas are evaluated throughout the survey process. So we think it's a good gauge. It's a piece of information that we think is valuable for our community to look at as we evaluate where we want to spend our dollars for budgeting and other things as well. Okay, so because ETC Institute out of Olathe deals with about 500 other communities throughout the United States, we can then benchmark ourselves against other communities. So St. Joseph is in yellow. Other communities in Missouri and St. Joseph is in blue. Kansas and Missouri is in red, and the U.S. is in yellow. So if you look at some of the parallels, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, St. Joseph is very hard on itself. We expect a lot, and we apparently demand a lot. And we don't rate as high as some of the other communities in some areas. But in some areas, we shine, and I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Again, you can study this information as we move through the process. Okay, so here's a place, here's an area where St. Joe absolutely shines, okay? And this has overall satisfaction with parks and recreation, St. Joseph versus Missouri, Kansas, and the U.S. So let's just look, for example, at the number one at the top, the number of walking trails, walking and biking trails, okay? So you see St. Joseph residents responded this at 83%. Quite frankly, of the 500 cities in America, that's number one of any community in America about our parks and recreation system as far as the bike and walking trails. Number of city parks, gosh, we're excelling there as well too. Maintenance of our local parks, we're right in the ballpark, right where the rest of America feels. And there's some areas, of course, that need improvement, and I don't think any community in America is satisfied with the swimming pools. We've been hearing about that for a long time, and there's no easy solution to that. But as you can see, it's just not a St. Joseph concern. It's other concerns across the country as well. So from a trending standpoint, we can evaluate ourselves. We can look at Missouri and Kansas. We can adapt and change the survey, but the benchmarking, we think, is a logical piece for us overall. So again, please feel free to touch base with me at the end of the evening. We'll get a complete copy of the survey to you electronically, and I think you can spend your leisure time then looking through the survey. Okay, you may remember in session one, week one of our series when we were at the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce. At the end of the evening, we had a meeting. We had a video called Ignite, and it talked about a spark. And one of the things they mentioned in that video is sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. Sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. So as you think about Community Alliance and the partners and folks working together and the partnerships and the collaboration on many different fronts, this certainly holds true. And I want to stress that right now, if I could. Can I get a volunteer from the audience to come up? Madison, you want to come on up? Okay, first hand up back here. So Madison, all right, come on up. Let's give Madison a hand here. Okay, sticks in a bundle. Okay, Madison, come on around here if you would. Just get front and center right out here in front of us. And of course, if you have a single stick, what do you think is probably going to happen? He won't break it. All right, we're trusting you. Did you eat your Wheaties this morning? Or?
I had raisin bread.
You had raisin bread. Well, okay, that's good. All right, so here's a single stick. All right, let's see if it's breakable. Whoa! Well, we expected you to go to the core, but let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, let's give him a hand. Okay, wait a minute, you're not done yet. You're not done yet. So,
Put that down.
yeah, there you go. There you go. So, okay, so now let's think about sticks in a bundle. Sticks in a bundle. Okay, Madison. If you had raisin bran this morning, hopefully you had 2 bowls. But the sticks are banded together, just as we band together with the Community Alliance of St. Joseph. So let's see what you can do. Can you break with your hands? Go. You take a couple of deep breaths and then have a go at it. Can you break this?
I'll at least try.
You'll at least try.
I'll at least
Okay.
try, right? No.
No.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Not gonna work? Not gonna work? Okay, how about a big hand for Madison? So just remember that throughout public service, we all have to work together. And you're going to see some terrific examples of that again this evening, by working together, how we can make things positive and move forward as a community. Okay? Questions that you may have?
Hey, Steve?
Yes?
The yellow band, did you go over into Kansas any at all?
We did
It's hard
not.
to read on,
We did not.
so around the airport area or nothing like that?
No, well, Actually, most of you are aware, Rosecrans is in the
Right,
city of
yeah.
St. Joseph, Missouri, so that would be included as well.
Okay, but not Elwood or?
No, we did not, just St. Joseph and Buchanan. Questions that you may have? All right.
Are there any factors from 2010 that started going downhill after that?
A few, yeah.
Big
a
change.
few. Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
share a few of those?
There are. Well, let me just, do we have enough time, Patty, for me to go into details, or where are we at? So, we're gonna be okay? All right, so let me just talk a little bit about where most candidates campaigned on, if you will, 4 years ago at this time. And that was our city streets. Quite frankly, in our city streets in St. Joseph they rate the lowest, just as Parks and Recreation rated the highest in the nation, we rated the lowest in terms of our city streets. So what happened at that point in time is that several positive things happened. One, our CIP group said, hey, we're going to do something about the conditions of our city streets, and they did. The CIP was a 5-year program. They stretched it into a 6-year program, and over 50% of the dollars from the CIP went into improvement of city streets. Do I have those numbers right? 60% went into city streets, okay? Thank you, Bruce. So, but the numbers started slipping a little bit even more. And so from time to time, now, quite frankly, the survey is a perception survey. So by perception survey, we simply mean it's residents' opinion on any given day at any particular point in time. So if we've come off of a bad winter, probably our streets and conditions of our streets are probably not going to rate as high as if we had a mild winter, so to speak. So there's some logic and so forth in it, but there are some areas where we've trended down very, very slightly. And again, the survey will point that out if you, as opposed to going through a whole lot of specific examples with this for the sake of time. So, okay, good question. Anything else? All right, Patty, back to you.
All right, thanks, Steve. Great information. All right, we are moving right along with Dr. Jeannie Daffrin, Vice President and Provost of Missouri Western State University. Dr. Daffrin has served Missouri Western State University extremely well for over 36 years. She has held numerous important administrative positions. She's been heavily involved in our community, including serving as the past chair of the St. Joseph Area Chamber of Commerce. Finally, she's been the recipient of an impressive list of teaching, administrative, and community awards. Jeannie's worked in several positions at Western, including the faculty in the nursing program, the department chair of nursing, and dean of College of Professional Studies. In 2009, Dr. Daffrin was appointed by Dr. Vardavedian as Provost and Vice President, Academic Affairs. She has contributed greatly to Missouri Western's mission and values. So welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you very much. I guess they've given me 5 minutes back here, so we're going to do this quickly. I did want to say welcome to campus for all of you. We appreciate you being here this evening. We're always happy to have folks from the community. It's the community's campus, and so we hope that you take advantage of the things that we have out here. I'm going to talk about a few of those things in just a minute, but this is an aerial view of campus. We have about we have about 725 acres here, so it's a fairly large campus. We have 27 buildings and a little bit more than 500 employees. So hopefully you've been on our campus before and enjoyed some of the things that we have here. We love to share the things we have. I wanted to talk just a minute about how higher education is organized in Missouri, because higher education differs in how they're organized. It's different in different states. So just wanted to be sure that you have this background information. So public institutions, we have 13 four-year universities, 9 regional universities, and 4 that are in the University of Missouri system. And so that's a total of 13 for the universities that offer 4-year degrees and higher degrees. 14 community colleges around the state. There's 1 public technical college, it's a 2-year college. And then there are a number of independent 4-year schools, 25 of those, and about 150, this changes quite a bit, so about 150 for-profit and private career schools around the state. So just a little bit about the role of higher education. public higher education very specifically. So the benefits of investments in public higher education are really shared by individuals, their families, communities, the state, and beyond that. So you all are probably very much aware of this, but these are the primary roles of higher education, public higher education. At the individual level, it's about jobs. People come to us to become more educated so that they can get the jobs that they want to have and have the careers that they want to have. So at the individual level, it's about increasing wages and benefits. And then also often, and these are generalizations of course, but then often also about satisfaction within jobs and careers. Also, another role, very important role, is to prepare a workforce for communities, for the state. So we're always working with our partners in business and industry and other organizations to try to identify what are those, where individuals needed, where employees needed. How do we best prepare people to do the kinds of jobs that are needed in our state, in our region, and our communities. And then there's a number of benefits that come from higher education that have to do with society as a whole. A lot of studies have shown that individuals with more education bring in more tax revenue. Again, at the local level, the state level, the national level, they're more likely to donate at a higher level to charity. They're more likely to be engaged in civic activities, including voting. There are a number of studies that show that the percentage of individuals who vote, it varies pretty significantly by levels of education, and it does increase as education goes up. And then also, kind of the opposite side of some of these things is that there is a decreased use of social services and income assistance, those kinds of things. So just quickly, Missouri Western at a glance. Students come from Missouri. Most of our students are from Missouri, about 87% this year. We also have, however, students who come from other states. This year, 36 other states, 36 other countries. And over half of our students are the first in their families to go to college. The average class size at Missouri Western is about 16. So we have 16 students, and that's an average, and there are smaller classes, there's larger classes, but the average is 16 per faculty member in the classroom. And so that's a fairly small number, and we intend to keep it that way. This is really one of our larger classrooms. We build our classroom buildings for small classes, and we believe that that's very important. It's our faculty who teach. We have very few teaching assistants, really only those who are wanting a career in higher education. Those are the few teaching assistants we have, and it's part of their training for that. But it's our faculty who are in the classrooms with our students. 95% of our faculty hold the highest degree in the field, and that's a really significant number. But that's also very important. It's our faculty who are working directly with our students, and that's very important to us. And then last year, just something I thought you'd be interested in, that our students and faculty and staff contributed over 120,000 hours of community service. That's something that we believe is very important. We want to be good citizens within our communities, and so that's not just in St. Joseph. Our students come from different places, our employees maybe live in other communities, so we count all of that wherever they're doing their service. So it's not just in St. Joseph, but a good number of those hours are here. Every year we have a 3-day orientation session for our incoming freshmen, and 1 day of that time is spent in doing community service. And so hopefully you all have seen our students doing some of those things. It's really good for them, and we think it's good for Missouri Western. We hope it's good for the community too. So, I'll skip some of this, but you see the numbers of degrees that we have at the master's level and the 4-year level and the associate degree level. One important point here, and this ties back to workforce development, but last year 80% of our graduating students were in these high demand areas, such as nursing and health professions, the sciences, math, engineering, technology, other technology programs, teacher education, social work, and business. So, really many of our students are here because this is a direct path to the career that they want. Steve and Marcy both have already talked about partnerships. Partnerships are so important for Missouri Western. We really could not do a lot of what we do without the partnerships. Community Alliance partners have been so important to us. They are important kind of on a daily basis. So many things happen because of these partnerships. And I've just listed just a very few, but these partnerships are really key to success for this institution and for our students. So you see some of those with the City of St. Joseph and Buchanan County. It, of course, is the Chiefs Training Camp and our, what we call the GISC, the Griffin Indoor Sports Complex. You know, the Chiefs use it for 3 weeks out of the year, and Missouri Western and the community gets to use it for the other 49 weeks, and it's really very, very valuable asset. We are partners with Missouri Conservation Department. They have buildings on our campus. We share classrooms with them, a lot of programming. They work with our students directly, so our students are involved daily in the work of that department. The city and the school district with our indoor pool, and that just has, the use there is just amazing. We were ready to just fill it in, and you know, some of our partners says, whoa, they say, whoa, let's see what we can do with this, and it's been very successful. So that's a very good partnership. The CVB, we work with them lots of ways, especially as we bring in tournaments or other kinds of athletic events, and they're very, very helpful to us in many ways. So you see a number of those. I'll go on just because of time. I'm talking fast, I apologize, but you do have the slides. I wanted to just show a number of the things the opportunities that are available both for our students, but also for individuals, families, groups, organizations throughout the city and the county and beyond that, throughout the region. So I wanted to list our academic programs as the first thing there. That's why we exist, really. That's very important. Many of our academic programs have national accreditation, where there's that level of accreditation available, and that's a high level of accreditation. It's not saying that we meet minimum standards, but it's a much higher level, and we're very proud of that. We have really very high quality academic programs. Applied learning is very important to us, and I'll mention that again in a minute, but the Missouri legislature gave Missouri Western a statewide mission in applied learning about 12 years ago now, and that's something we take very seriously, and I'll talk about that just for another minute. You see a number of the other things on our campus, the Walter Cronkite Memorial. Probably some of you walked through that area if you came from downstairs. If you haven't taken an opportunity to spend a little time there, it's really fun. It's very interactive and very informative, and for those of us closer to my age, probably will bring back a lot of memories. But it's very well done. We're very proud of it. And we'd love to have you come spend more time there. We have a planetarium. They have shows every Tuesday, and then other times, special times. But it's a very, very nice facility. Hopefully you've been able to take advantage of that. We do a lot of concerts and theater performances, art exhibits in the fine arts area. We have 16 sports in Division II, so we're often very competitive. We have actually our women's volleyball playing right now in the regional tournament. They're playing over in our Looting complex. So, everything from volleyball. We have 6 new sports in cross country and track and field, so we're learning a lot about that right now, but all the other fairly traditional ones, and our teams really do very well. We're very proud of our student athletes. Our convocation on critical issues, public presentations made by faculty and visiting professors, all of those things are available to the community, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to participate in those. And then I wanted to talk just a minute about workforce, because remember when I was talking about the roles of higher education, that's one of the important roles. So just a few of the things related to that. We do have on our campus the Bond Science and Technology Incubator. It's on the other side of the interstate, but you all have seen that building, I expect. We did build that with a grant from the EDA, and that really is to help new businesses get a good start, or to expand, or to develop new products, and to help entrepreneurs who are taking their inventions to a commercial application. So that's on campus. The applied learning I mentioned, 98% of our graduating seniors have had a significant applied learning experience. Those are internships, study abroad opportunities sometimes, those kinds of things where they're applying what they've learned in the classroom outside of the classroom. Our Craig School of Business, we have a franchise program where students compete to, the winner, and sometimes more than just one person. Often it's several students who are awarded actually a business. So we have 30 of those at this point that are in operation across the country. Very successful program. And then our Center for Entrepreneurship. This is a little bit newer, and maybe you're not aware of this, but this is a very successful center that is really designed to provide free and confidential services for businesses throughout the region, not just in St. Joseph, but beyond that, throughout the region. I have a number here that was last week. They've so far, in 3 years, helped 388 businesses, but that was just a couple weeks ago. And that says today it's 401. So in 3 years, this has been really very helpful. And then we were asked to identify perhaps some challenges. So I just wanted to, I won't spend really any time on this, but just so that you know some of our top challenges right now. We won't surprise you, but we are experiencing declining state support. And this year, for this fiscal year, we had a 9% cut in our state appropriations. And so that's, that's pretty significant. And so that's definitely a challenge. Changes in regional employment needs is a challenge. We want to be responsive to that. As a regional university, we want to be responsive to our partners in business and industry, other organizations, and that kind of change is happening quicker than it used to. And then we've seen also, and this is kind of fun, but changes in student interests and their expectations. For some of us, when we went to college, we were very happy to live in a dorm where we shared a room and one bathroom for 60 of us or something. And that's not the expectation any longer. Students have very different expectations and interests, and so keeping up with that and making sure that we're making wise and appropriate decisions related to that. So those are challenges. And then just wanted to show you this one to emphasize the fiscal challenge. This is the percentage of our institutional budget that was funded by state appropriations. So back in 1980, I remember that, you all probably don't, but back in 1980, it was a little over 80% of our budget that was provided by the state appropriation. In 2017, it's about 32%. So, I mean, that's a lot of years, but that's a huge change, and so that's why that's really kind of our top challenge at this point. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Jeannie, if I may.
Yes.
So, by the way, my name is Brant Shields. I'm the Director of External Relations for Missouri Western State University, and also serve as Dr. Barbini's Chief of Staff. What I do for the university is I do government and community relations work. So, for our elected officials, both at the county level and the city level, and I kind of serve as the university's first point of contact for our elected officials. So if you ever have any questions, if you ever have any constituent issues, anything else like that, want to get more involved with the university, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help serve you. In fact, it's my job to serve you and to serve the university. So again, thank you all for considering running for office. It's a very important civic duty, and it's something that few people are willing to take on that challenge. And so to be one of those few is incredibly important to our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you so much, Amy. All right, moving right along. Our next speaker is Pat Dillon. He's Vice President of Advocacy and Government Relations at Mosaic Life Care. Really doesn't need any introduction. He's commonly known as Mr. Community. Mr. Community. In terms of leadership, Pat Dillon exemplifies the true meaning of community engagement. He's a dedicated and loyal to our community. The Dillon Company was founded by Pat's father and brother in 1974. It began during the energy crisis, primarily with the insulation. Pat purchased the business from the family in 1986 and operated it for the next 20 years, expanding the product line during that time. In 2007, he sold the business. He then joined Heartland Health, now Mosaic Life Care, in expanding roles. Pat currently serves as Vice President of Advocacy and Government Relations for Mosaic Life Care. His current role includes local, regional, state, and national responsibilities.
That's enough.
What? That's enough? Hey, welcome back.
I'd like to say something about him.
Here we go.
Everybody would, Pat.
That's Pat with one T, Pat with two T's back there. Well, welcome guys, well, everybody, thanks for being here. I'm gonna keep this a little brief on my information because I handed out most of it to you to look at. And then I'll be glad to answer any questions about Mosaic Life Care that I can answer. But again, my role, when I went to the hospital, it's been 10 years now since I went to the hospital. I actually went there for retail development, and I worked in the retail field. Back then, a lot of hospitals were trying to change their way they treated people as far as an experience. So we did things like we added another shop, we did the retail clinic out at Walmart, if you remember that. Other things that were more about the experience for consumers. That's why I went there in the first place. And then some years ago, Dr. Laney asked me to get into community advocacy, which I love to do because it gave me a chance to do for a living what I just love to do out in the community. And then a few years ago, one of our folks, Dirk Clark, took a different role in the organization, and so they added government relations to my role. So I do the community advocacy both locally, in the region too, like with Great Northwest Days Steve was talking about. I do that kind of work. And then also I do government relations for the community. I work with elected officials. I'll be working with some of you all. I work with the county, the city. I do work with the state legislature, so I get down there during session or as needed. And then I get out to DC about 3 or 4 times a year for our elected officials. I'll tell you, the Community Alliance is such an important factor for our community, and I know the survey that Steve was referring to, it's a great handbook to go by if you're an elected official, but it also, they're out there really going after the work of our community. The things that are happening with the 139th and the levy just don't happen without that kind of work, and that's just that alliance together, working together like Steve said, so use that as a great resource. Mosaic Life Care is a nonprofit, and a lot of people say, how can Mosaic Life Care be a nonprofit and make profit? You have to make a profit to pay the things we pay, to invest in $2 million CT scanners and all the different things that come along every year. But it's a large organization, and this first sheet I'm going to refer to that says just Mosaic Life Care at a glance. I'm not going to read it all, but you'll notice there at the top it says Mosaic Life Care is a physician-led life care company. We use the term life care. We started using that years ago rather than health care because in today's world it isn't just fix the person when they're sick. Our role as the sole community hospital is to try to keep people healthy. When they do get sick, we try to heal them, and then we try to keep them healthy afterwards and keep them from re-entering the hospital. It almost seems backwards to what the old days were when as many people came to the hospital, the better. But now the real role is to keep people out. So we've gotten away from this fee for service, just paying and charging people for as much as you can, as often as you can, back in the old days, to really value-based. We get different reimbursements now by keeping people out of the hospital and things like that. So we changed our name to Life Care. The medical center, clinical facilities there you'll see. And the 2 pictures you see, of course, one's a hospital. The other one is our location down in Shoal Creek near Liberty. If you haven't seen that, that's one of our main clinic, flagship clinic down there. But our service area is composed of 41 counties in northwest Missouri. A lot of people think we're just St. Joe, but we actually serve a 41 county region. We are the main hospital, only tertiary hospital between Kansas City and Omaha. Level 2 trauma center. We're licensed for 352 beds. Region's largest employer. We take that very seriously. We employ around 4,400 people between St. Joseph, Missouri, and then in North Kansas City too. But as the largest employer, we have I believe, is a real corporate duty to do things that you see us doing in the community. Some of that is in our investment downtown. Some of that is working with partners in the community, helping initiatives get driven and things like that. But we're proud of that. One of our main pillars of Mosaic is to be the employer of choice. We take that really strong. We really work on that. We feel very good about providing good jobs in our community along with taking care of the health of the community. One thing, that last bullet point under that paragraph, is that we are a member of the Mayo Clinic Care Network. We were like the 5th one to become a member of Mayo Clinic Care Network. And if you don't know what that is, it's such a value to us in the community. You come into the hospital, you have something that's really going on, and maybe we're having a tough time. We have the ability to do an immediate telemedicine visit or a conference call with Mayo Clinic. We have the doctors looking in. They can look at your case. We can electronically send all your records right to them. We get recommendations on what to do. 85% of the people that we use a Mayo Clinic visit with or a telemedicine visit with stay here at our hospital. But we use their resources to help us if it's a case that really needs our help. But there are about 15% that we get up to Mayo, and we get them in much quicker because we are part of that Mayo Care Clinic. So it's a great advantage to our community and our region that we have that tie to Mayo Clinic. I'm really proud of that. Community benefit, what we do in the community. The board has set a goal to tithe 10% of revenue committed back to the community. Our board actually talks about that and sets that number. So with some of the other things you'll hear me talk about, that comes directly from our board of directors and being that good corporate citizen. Our foundation, Steve, are you chair right now of the Heartland Foundation? That was created through the hospital. It's kind of a little bit more of a standalone, but it's still tied to us. And if you think about it, most foundations at hospitals raise money for the hospital and all this. Our foundation has always been out doing work in the region, working on population health, working on things of importance. So real proud of that. Some of the awards that we've gotten, the one down there at the very bottom of that paragraph, that Foster G. McGaw Prize recipient, that is really, I mean, most people, unless you're in our industry, don't know what that is. That is a very coveted award, and we won it some years ago. And what that is for your work in the community beyond healthcare. It's doing other things in the community. So we're real proud of that. And then under quality, you'll see there the Malcolm Baldridge Award, which we're very proud of. We are the only Missouri hospital with a 5-star rating. So that's something that we're very proud of. So we're the only 5-star rated hospital in Missouri. Truven Health Analytics, they do ratings. We're in the 100 top hospitals. But also that last piece of that says we won the Everest Award. The Everest Award only goes to 10 hospitals in that top 100. So really getting down to that quality issue. We are really up at around the 98th percentile in quality. Healthiest employer certification. And then population health. We're a member of Impact, which is what we're creating, trying to create a network across the state with other hospitals so that as you travel across the state, your services, your records, everything travel with you. And then our electronic medical records and some of the things we do there. The other piece of handout or the other brochure I gave you out is our healthy, says Live Life Healthy. That's our community health needs assessment. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before in other presentations. We call it our CHNA, Community Health Needs Assessment. And if you notice there in that first paragraph on the left, it says the IRS. The IRS tells every hospital now, you will do a CHNA every 3 years. You will comply by the CHNA, and if you don't do the CHNA, and then they can look back and see how you're spending your dollars, you can lose your tax exempt status. And there was a hospital this year that lost their tax exempt status. I would hate to be the CEO of that hospital and have to answer to his board that lost it. And I don't think they took it serious, but they do audits on this stuff. They go online, they look at your online capability, where's your information. And really what that is as a CHNA project, every 3 years we have to go out and try to identify the 3 top health needs of a community. And they're listed there. And we do that with community surveys, focus groups. It takes a long process for them to do this. It's not cheap to put one of these together if you're going to really get in depth. And as you go down the right side, you'll see some of the information, the data. But at the very bottom it says the primary health issues, and the 3 that have been identified is access to affordable health care and medication. One of the very top problems we have is folks being able to access affordable care and meds. It's a real problem for folks. Adult and childhood obesity, that one is the same as our last CHNA. It didn't change. And then the other one is mental health services, which we all know is a huge problem across our country, not just St. Joe. And that one did not change from our last CHNA. So every 3 years we review those. On the back side, you'll see a little bit more about our community benefit. One thing, just down that second red one that says Community Connect, that's something that comes right out of my office, the advocacy office. We handle our Community Connect grant dollars. And 2 years ago we started a program where, and it aligns with our CHNA, part of it is that. As you can imagine, as a hospital our size, we get lots and lots of requests for dollars. Everybody wants us to sponsor different things, invest in different things. But now we try to align it a little bit, or really 90%, with our CHNA. If we're going to give money to something, we want to make sure it's working along the lens of that CHNA, and it's working along the line of doing that population health work. Last year, if you go down towards the bottom, actually those are 2016 numbers down by that the girl in the picture. In 2016, Mosaic Life Care awarded $1.2 million in grants. This year, just this July in 17, so we have not updated this yet. This year we just recently awarded $1.3 million in grants. In 16, there were 10 social service agencies that got granted dollars. This year there were 13. And what they do is it's almost like a United Way process, if you can imagine. There comes a time when the grants are open, agencies can apply, we review them, and then we look at, and we tell them, we help them with their grants if they need it, but do they align with our CHNA? You know, we say, hey, if you're going to do this, try to make sure it aligns so that the group that then looks at it has a good opportunity to take it further. Then we boil it down to the ones we want to get a presentation from. They do presentations, and then we split up the $1.3 million accordingly that we can do for these agencies. We can't fund them all, but it's a great outreach. Again, on the right side, CHNA action plan, you'll see the top three areas, and there's some things there that go on there. So that's kind of our main information about the hospital, our size. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about downtown development. I see Patty standing up, so I must be getting close. Downtown development, you all know what's been going on downtown. We have, when we get done with the parking garage partnership with the city, parking garage retail development, between the German American building and the parking garage and a little bit of money in the old Plymouth building, but we haven't done a lot to that yet other than secure it. We will have invested about $40 million downtown. The German American building is up and operating. As you know, the parking lots over across from the Missouri Theater are finished. The fences are around them, nice lighting. And if anybody goes to any of the theater shows now, you know how nice it is to have a parking lot across the street. Because after 5, we open those up to the general public. The parking garage should be done end of the year. So we're excited to get that open, get all those streets open again. And then again, there will be some retail development in that. German American building holds anywhere from 200 to 250 people. We're probably around 225 right now working in the German American building. The parking garage I mentioned, and then the Plymouth building. We do not have a plan right now for the German American building. And a lot of people ask me, so why did you take on the German American building? It was really becoming a bit of an eyesore. The front of it was falling off, upper top wall, what kind of wall? Parapet wall, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. It was about to fall off the front of the building. Nobody wanted to buy it. And then the family that owned it said, hey, if we donated it to the hospital, since we're a 501, would you take it on? So we did the environmental studies, we did everything around that, realized it wasn't going to be something really awful, but it was going to take about $300,000 to tighten it up, get the roof fixed, and get that wall secured for future development. So hopefully it'll be something we use. We think it will. We've had a lot of people inquiring about leasing out space in there, but it's secured, and the good thing is we saved an old building downtown. Another 2 years, another 2 winters, that big old Plymouth building may have been gone. So that's what it is. So again, that's kind of what I do. That's in a nutshell the organization. We do a lot of stuff, but I'll answer any questions you might have about Mosaic and what we do or why we do it. Any questions? Sweet.
You explained it too well.
I'm off the hook. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, our next speaker is Dr. Robert Newhart, Superintendent of the St. Joseph's Public School District. Dr. Newhart was hired in July of 2015 as the superintendent of our schools. Previously, he was superintendent at Princeton, R5. He was in Lexington, R5 School District in Missouri, and Polo. He's also been an assistant principal and a principal. Dr. Newhart received his doctorate in education in educational leadership and policy analysis from the University of Missouri. He also has a specialist superintendent and master's in education and secondary administration from Northwest Missouri State University. But he did graduate from Missouri Western, so with a Bachelor of Science in Education, Bachelor of Science in Business, and Associate of Science in Business. So please welcome Dr. Hillard.
Pat, you're a hard act to follow. I will keep this brief. I believe we only have one board candidate in here, and that's Aaron Duncan. If I'm missing anybody, please let me know. We do have 3 positions up for election in April of 18. Martin Rucker's position, Dennis Sneathen's position, and Larry Koch's position. He's filling the remaining spot or year vacated by Chris Danford. But those 3 positions are up for election and begins a process in April of 18 that you'll see a board election every year. 3 are up in April of 18, 2 are up in April of 19, Brian Green and Tammy Pasley, and then 2 more are up in 2020, that being Cappy Hodges and Lori Prusman. And then in 2021, it'll be the 3 spots again that were voted on in April of 18. So that rotation will begin, which is unusual for the St. Joe School District because it was 6-year terms and every 2-year elections. So now we are in alignment with the rest of the part of the state because that's how that's been conducted for many years, but it's just St. Joe was grandfathered in with a different format, but that now has changed. The St. Joe School District is the 3rd largest employer in the community with over 1,700 employees. We have over 11,400 students. 65% of those students are free and reduced students. We have an increased ESOL population. A lot of people don't realize this, with over 700 English as second language learners that speak over 21 different dialects. And that's becoming an increasing issue with that. We do partner with Missouri Western, have tried to partner with Missouri Western in some grants in developing ESOL teachers. That is a need in an area that is going to have to continually be addressed. We do have 3 high schools, 4 middle schools, 16 elementary buildings. We operate a K-12 alternative school and also an adult education program, not only for GED programming, but also adult vocational programming at Hilliard's. We also have 1 preschool center and 8 preschool center sites. We currently only serve about 1/3 of the early childhood population in the community. The other population of the area is served by private programming, and or they don't even, whether or not they even send those children to preschool. Our annual operation budget is approximately $120 million, and we have many challenges, especially in light of the election results last week. And it was very enlightening. It was very appreciative of the large voter turnout, and I think that's important for any election, and that needs to continue. However, in light of those results, we still have to continue to build the trust. We're regrouping, we're restructuring. We have always, since coming off of the investigative issues of 2015, but we have made great strides. And it's going to take people to become interested in becoming a board member and becoming involved and willing to tackle some of these issues, because the single greatest thing, I believe, both in the business community's eyes and also with the St. Joe School District, is the excellence of a public school system for the community. We've got to increase that ability to educate each and every child for success, which is the mission of the school district. We have many different partnerships with the community, many of them that were already mentioned. We've partnered with Missouri Western on several different items. One of those was the swimming pool. We contributed approximately $22,000 a year for the swimming pool project, and also the use of that for our school swim teams. The Parks and Rec Department, with the use of the city fields, particularly in baseball, softball, we also have an agreement, lease agreement with the city for Noyes Field. We just recently also completed a donation to the city for easement property for the city trail system, which was behind Truman Middle School, basically, the additional trail system there. We have alliances with, other entities such as Big Brothers Big Sisters, YMCA, the Heartland Health Foundation. We're involved in many different programs and businesses across the board. The Community Alliance is very helpful because it brings all the different entities together. And as mentioned earlier, I can't remember, I think it was you, Steve, connecting the dots. And that's important in going forward and working together. And that's probably the biggest thing that has to happen, is continuing to work together, all stakeholders, all sides, to come up with that plan that can continue to move the St. Joe School District forward. We're here to help any candidates. If anybody, city council candidates, are interested in running for the school board, I'd welcome that. We do have the meeting at the downtown office on Thursday this week at 6 p.m. That would be held in the boardroom. And the first sign-ups for the board candidates is beginning December 12th. And that will run, I don't have the date, through January, I believe it is. With that being said, are there any questions?
Dr. Newhart, I noticed on the previous presenter slides that there was only one 2-year public technical school in Missouri. And I hear from a number of employers that they cannot get qualified people for the high-tech positions. And they're very good jobs, $20, $30 an hour jobs. And I was wondering, does Hilliard not fulfill this need, or do we need a 2-year community college in St. Joe, in your opinion?
Currently, right now, Hilliard's is a 912 with adult ed vocational programming. It's not a community college status. We do provide certification in many adult programs, whether that's dental hygienist to radiology to manufacturing, partner with Missouri Western and the community on the manufacturing certification. I think that is a direction that is needed for the community to move forward with an educational aspect for the adult ed program. We have a segment of the population in our 912 schools that really don't go on and do anything, whether they don't know that there is something out there or they don't know what to do when it's right here in their backyard. We're working, trying to educate that population better. We are partnering with Missouri Western right now and working with the city and the chamber as well on apprenticeships and many programming that is no cost to us, or we're trying to make that at a no cost to us. The next step would be, in my opinion, to try to develop that community college technical school concept or become a reality. I think there is a need, yes.
I don't know, I beg to differ because I was one of the people that did go through the manufacturing engineering technology program through Missouri Western with Hilliard's also, and it's a pretty extensive.
Well, that's a precursor to what a community college. I agree with you. It's an excellent program. And we share that cost with Missouri Western. I didn't know if you were fully aware of that or not.
Well, but again, I got into it. I was the second graduating class out of the program, and
I remember you mentioned that one of the first nights when Dr. Verbidi was there.
yeah, I mean, because like again, the professors that teach that, I was 18 years old out of high school and took that class. Never worked in a factory one day. And within 2 years of time in a factory, I was traveling for Sara Foods, bringing new machinery back to the company and implementing it to the employees. It's such it was a lights out program. I mean, we were capable of work. I had job offers from the people that make the machines to, go and work for their facilities out of the state.
I think the idea of a community college, though, would be whether or not then a student would take that certificate or that 2-year degree or that 2-year programming and go to the workforce, or then also it would have the opportunity to feed right into, say, a 4-year program like Missouri Western though too.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, when I took the course, it wasn't offered for a 4-year. The year I went blind, I was going to go back and get my bachelor's, but it wasn't made known to me out of high school, other than a lady that was doing her intern teaching at the high school. She mentioned it to me because I was just going to settle for going and being a welder in a facility, you know, somewhere. And she said, you know, you possess more than that, and told me about the program. So I don't think it's really an issue of not having these things available as much as it is at the time. I wasn't told about the program being offered.
We're actually working even with middle schoolers now on making sure not only are they made aware of what is available, but also their parents. And we believe that is a key indicator as well, to make sure parents understand what is out there, what is available, and what their costs are too associated with it.
Yeah, because it's a wonderful, like I said, it made me very successful.
Dr. Duarte, real quick, how many buildings does the school district own, and also lots that isn't even in use, or only 1 or 2 people maybe working out of the facility? Or
We have 33 buildings that we own. Actually, we expect to be able to announce the sale of the Colgan building, which has been under contract for several months now. So that is supposed to close actually here the week after Thanksgiving it would be. We're currently evaluating from the Noyes building to our warehouse, you know, even the Keatley Center. But some of these spaces also do occupy from, like the Keatley Center, just take an example there. It's a gymnasium for Truman Middle School. It's a recreational program too for many of the city programs. Also for early childhood programming. Our PAT operates out of there. So it might not be an operational 8 hours out of the day all the time, but it's frequently used throughout the week. And it's, you know, the only other vacant building we have is the Noyes building. And
we used to have one down there off of like 10th Street that you did a lot of auctions out of. I mean, do you still not?
Is that the warehouse?
Some kind of warehouse.
Yeah, we use that warehouse for, you know, basically storage and deliveries.
The income of the Colgan Center, does that come all of your money, or does some of that go back to the state of Missouri because of the way that was when you bought it?
It was actually a $1 donation.
Right.
So it will be back into our capital fund.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
All right, up next is Harry Roberts, Buchanan County Presiding Commissioner. Harry's a native of St. Joseph. He was a prominent insurance agent for many years, insurance executive through his career. He began his public service career when he was elected as Presiding Commissioner for Buchanan County. So I'm going to let, he's dedicated to St. Joseph. Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to be a little quicker. I can remember 4 years ago being in the same seat that you all were in, and going through the candidate training with MEC and all that. So I remember, it hadn't been that long ago, I remember sitting in your shoes. So I'm going to be to the point, cover a lot of stuff. If you have any questions, time to raise your hand. Time you have any questions, raise your hand then if you would. So a little bit about the county. First of all, the county has 262 employees. We operate on, and it varies a little bit, but about a $46 million budget. At the county, we have all our executives are elected. So we have the treasurer, we have the auditor. The auditor obviously does what an auditor does, reviews the books, makes sure that all the money's going to the right spot, and double checks what the treasurer's doing, as well as the collector. We have the county clerk, which is going to be very important to many of you because they're the ones that run the election throughout the entire county. Okay. And then we have the recorder of deeds to make sure that your property doesn't have, is recorded properly so that you're the owner of it. Patty deals with that in your business, checking all those things. And then we have the assessor, we have the sheriff's department, we have the prosecutor's department, and then also we have the public administrator. And we have with us tonight a past public administrator, Bill McMurray. And you know, Bill did a great job. I'm not plugging for him here tonight, but Bill did a great job. He came in and cleaned up the public administrator's office several years ago, and very happy about that. It's good to work with a clean public administrator's office. And then we have the three commissioners. I like to call it the government of three wise men, because it only takes three. It takes two of the three to make a decision, and that's how quick it happens. We do have to follow all the sunshine rules. You all probably been reading on sunshine and been educated on sunshine, how things have to get open, and when you have a quorum, you have to make sure that you know, it's open to the public, it's been posted properly, and so forth. So that's just a little bit about the county. From the commissioner standpoint, our commissioners are in charge of road and bridge in their respective districts. I think you may have seen where our commissioners are actually this year, which is unique. They've actually been working together on several projects to try to gain efficiencies. And you know, we've been pleased with those results, and we've been hearing good things back from the community in that area. Myself, I'm in charge of all the buildings for the county, whether it be the courthouse, the multipurpose building, the new hazmat building that's down on Colorado Avenue. That's my jurisdiction, if you will, with the other commissioners. And then also the county has the ambulance service. The ambulance service is 501c3, where the county is the only member. And you have all seen that we've located some hard posts, one on 10th Street. We did that to find efficiencies, okay? And the reason I keep talking about efficiencies is because I think that's a lot of things that people always tend to talk about when they're campaigning. I know I talked about that when I campaigned. And so one of the things I'm going to talk about here in a little bit is about keeping your promises. When you campaign, stick to your promises, because that is where you will get satisfaction from the community. So like I said, we take care of the ambulance service now. But it's a big government. People ask me, well, aren't you over the recorder of deeds, or aren't you over the collector, and so forth? And Bill will tell you that the presiding commissioner and the other commissioners don't have any authority over those. You do, as people who vote them in, okay? And remember that, because you're running for office, your bosses are the voters, okay? And I can't stress that enough. And you're not going to please all of your bosses. But the bosses for every elected official is the voters. And I can't stress that enough. When you're out there campaigning and you're out knocking doors and you're talking to folks, you're talking to your proposed bosses. And you better take that very seriously, because they will come back to you if you campaign on something and you don't follow through. If you don't take the position that you campaigned on, you're going to hear about it. I mean, I'm very serious. So I know this is a lot about candidates, training, and familiarity with community lives and stuff, but I really want to stress that tonight. So let's talk about collaboration between governments, okay? And I want to reflect on, we've done a lot of that here, but I want to reflect on probably one of the biggest projects that the city, the county, the entire community, the federal government has joined in on, okay? Many of us here, I look around, some have gray hair like I do. We can remember that what we went through with the flood in 1993, okay? And very simply put, our levee system failed, okay? And we have been at a threat with the levees not being capable of preventing, you know, the 100-year flood, if you will. So this has been worked on by many of my predecessors, many of yours. Gary's been on city council for years, and it's been in the works. The chamber's worked on it with us, the community alliance has worked with it, and so finally here, about 2 years ago, with the help of our Senator Blunt, so it's a federal level, He really worked hard with the budget and with the Corps of Engineers to get them to the table, as we did too. And Pat's here. Pat's fought this fight for, well, 15 years. Yeah, a long time. So finally, we actually had them come to the table, the Corps of Engineers, and say, we're ready to move, okay? Well, that was great. It's a $71 million project, okay? Of which, roughly, it's a 65-35% match, meaning the federal government covers 65% of the cost, and local covers 35%. Well, if you just do the math on that, that's $46 million worth of federal money and $25 million worth of local money. So we have the feds, they come along and say, we're ready to go, but if you can't show us you have the money, okay, we're not coming back. That's how clear it was, okay? And we know the Corps is going to do what the Corps is going to do. We had the state come in, because the state knew how big of an issue it was, and we had our representatives down there, Pat Conway, Galen Higdon, Dallas Johnson, and then our senator also, Rob Shaw, who was able to work with the state legislature to get $5 million out of the state for us. Okay, that's a big deal. Okay, and then the city, the county, and our other levy partners, 3 other levy partners, all got together with the help of the Community Alliance. Okay, and the chamber was right there on board with us, so that we came up with a strategy. Now I'm going to be very clear. That strategy took some work, okay? But it wasn't just one person's doing. It was a collaboration of the city, the county, the chamber, all coming together and saying, okay, let's get behind. We know the problem needs to be fixed. We know that we need this revenue so we can fix these levies, which, by the way, protect the 139th Airlift Wing, which has 1,182 positions with an average wage of $70,000 a year, as well as over 5,000 jobs on the Stockyard Expressway. So we know we need to fix this problem. But even though there was different ideas, okay, out there as far as how we fund it, whether it be in a bond, whatever it is, we all came together under one idea. And that one idea was to put it on a ballot for a sunset sales tax, all right? And that's moving forward. But it wasn't one person's idea, it was the collaboration of everybody coming together. And that's how government is supposed to work. We all think, well, we shouldn't be doing this, or I'm against this. But it's harder to be for something. It's a much harder path to walk down to be for something than it is to be against something. I don't care where we are, we always have people say, I'm against that, I don't like that, I don't like that. No, 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 no. But this community is going to be much better off because everybody got together and said, let's be for something. Okay? And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, is as a candidate, and as somebody who wants to serve, find out what you're for, not what you're against. Find out why you're running to serve, because you better figure out something that you're for if you want to get something done with everyone, okay? And figure out a way to work together instead of try to make yourself bigger than the group you're part of. That's what collaboration is about. That's what being a public servant is about. And you can be all of that and still be fiscally conservative, be about roads, or whatever the case might be. But truly, truly figure out what you're for and work on that. And that's really all I have to say for you folks tonight. I remember what it's to be there. I'm in your shoes again, all right? Because I've got another campaign coming up myself. But truly, work together, and we'll accomplish a lot more. Truly will. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Who are the 3 other partners in the levy deal?
We have 3 other levy districts, which are the airport levy, Southside levy, and Hall levy district. I believe. Correct. Good question. Yes, sir.
How is the ambulance doing? How is the ambulance doing?
Well, we think it's doing very well. We have a good board, a very diverse board, and we have found efficiencies in a hard post on 11th Street, which that hard post, by saving dollars on fuel, instead of running the ambulance 24/7, we pull it in, plug it in, keep the cab warm, all right, so that the medicines are kept at the right temperature. And we're saving about 33% on operations, which will pay for that building there on 10th Street in 4 years. We have a hard post on Colorado that's just getting kicked off. We had another location we're still using, but it doesn't allow us to do those things, so it's not efficient. But since the county has a new hazmat facility, we're going to move it in there, and we'll be able to do that. As far as the headquarters goes, the headquarters you'll see on Frederick Avenue, right across the street from Meyerhofer's. Okay. We actually came in under budget and moved in ahead of schedule. And so our assets are growing slowly, and we intend to have that building paid off well ahead of schedule as well. Our call times are a few seconds better than when we first got into it. We actually believe the ambulance is doing very well. We don't get complaints. And I'd like to knock on some wood. All right. There's wood under that for Mike. Any other questions?
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Thanks so much,
Appreciate
Gary.
your time. Appreciate your run.
Our next speaker is Bruce Woody. He's the city manager of St. Joseph. He's been the city manager since 2011. Prior to that, he was with the St. Joseph Public Works Director for 14 years. So Bruce has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Missouri-Rolla, and he's a licensed professional engineer in the states of Missouri and Kansas. So, Bruce, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The hour's getting late, isn't it? Don't be too long. First off, I know it's been mentioned several times, but thank you very much for your service. This whole series of 4 meetings have been put together largely for both school district as well as council positions for the city, the majority of you all being in that particular category. We have 29 folks that have picked up petitions altogether, running for 9 positions. So there's a bit of competition. So far it looks like we'll have at least 3 runoffs in the primary on February 6th. Depends, it may be a few more depending on how many more petitions get turned in between now and November 21st. Tomorrow, your last of this series is a meeting on the Thursday the 16th. It'll deal with the Nature Center, and I'll have a little more details on our closing slide. City of St. Joseph, as an organization, goes through a strategic planning process. The current strategic plan and vision mission for St. Joseph is there on the screen. It was worked on by our current city council in 2014. Last time that they updated their strategic plan. You coming into office here this April, we'll be having similar discussions where you'll either update, modify, or throw out and start all over again, depending on what the majority interest certainly is of the entire city council. But that's a process we go through on a regular basis. The big concern for the council at the time when they went through it was the emphasis on trying to have a community that is progressive and thriving and moving forward well. We certainly don't debate that we have a nationally recognized history, and we're working certainly on making sure that we have good quality of life and quality services in our community. The organization, I'm just going to touch on a few highlights. Since Thursday is going to be a meeting, we're going to talk in a lot more detail about all these subjects. I just want to give you kind of an introduction. It's a fairly large organization overall. We have quite a few seasonal and part-time services as well, largely related to our Parks and Recreation and to a lesser degree our Public Works Department. But 744 full-time employees scattered across 8 major departments, which are pretty recognizable there. The annual budget for the entire organization, well, first I might say that our fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th, unlike the county that has a calendar year, January to December. The budget that we're in right now is the fiscal year 2018 or FY18 budget. It's $167 million. It varies quite a bit from year to year, and what drives it is largely the capital program. That first number operating of $123 million hasn't really changed a whole lot. 5%, maybe 5-6% in the last 5 years, and most of that was due to our public safety tax that the community passed, which allowed for hiring of 20 additional police officers. What really drives fluctuations year to year are capital programs, whether it be our half-cent sales tax program or projects on our wastewater utility or other projects like that. For instance, last year the overall budget was $243 million. Because we're a service organization, the largest expenses often fall into salaries, wages, employee benefits, those types of things, although the sum of those two numbers, about 30%, is actually lower than a lot of communities if you make some comparisons. So I think we run a relatively lean ship altogether. Local government serves lots of different groups. As you're going out and getting signatures and talking to folks, you're probably talking primarily with residents. You may get also feedback from folks who are concerned as a wastewater utility operator. But as you go through the campaigning process, but there's a lot of other folks out there that are small business, there's large business, there's enterprise customers as well. There's other constituencies that you'll come to find out if you get on the board. There's geographic constituencies, the north versus the south versus Midtown versus the east. There's race, gender, nationality. There's business locations, industrial parks versus downtown. Every imaginable constituency you'll have to deal with, and be sure that you can be as fair and equitable as and responsive as you can to each one of those. The main services certainly that we provide, if you just ask the man on the street, the things they think about are the ones up there on the board. Think about it, if you're going about your daily life, you're not really involved and have much care about politics. If those kinds of services are going okay, you really don't think too much except on the occasional election about what else going on in your community perhaps. The challenge for us is to reach out to those folks who are very busy in their regular lives and still be sure that we have some input from them and have some feel for what sometimes is a silent majority about what's going on in their community. As Steve talked about at length, we have a community survey that we use as a very important tool to have some objective measures through the use of a statistically significant survey on what the likes and dislikes are and the priorities of our community. But we also have to reach out in other ways as well. Channel 19 is a service that we provide. CityLink, a publication that we send on a regular basis. We televise our council meetings, our planning and zoning committee meetings, and certainly our website is an important resource for the community. I might point out, I've got Mary Robertson here with me, who's our communications manager and does a great deal of that work. We have lots of challenges, as any community does. Steve mentioned our community survey, and if you went through that document and just looked at some of the high priority items in the relative order as they came out of the community survey, those are the types of things. But I will point out that those top three right there constitute, although those are in sequential order, those got a lot more votes, so to speak, amongst our community as concerns. The others are distant, third through eighth. Feedback I've heard from candidates I've spoken to so far who have volunteered a particular position have expressed to me concerns about public safety, wastewater utility bills, street maintenance. Any others? Unless you want to keep the planks of your campaign to yourself in the moment. Importance of collaboration, as Steve had mentioned, what really gets done well in our community are items where we all work and partner together. It's so hard for one individual group or community to get things done nowadays. It's either financial problems, credibility problems, constituency issues or problems. So in areas of tight budgets, we have to work really close together. We're a community whose properties and sales tax values or revenues have been relatively stable. We really weren't hurt as badly after 2008 as some cities were. Our situation in the Midwest, et cetera, really helped. But certainly it's been very flat. But we're not immune to other concerns. Expenses have risen for services we provide in the same way that they've hit your own personal households, utilities, cost of salaries and benefits, materials, things like that. Yet, with reason, public still expects more services. The do more with less continues to be an ongoing concern. So we deploy a lot of tools, always looking for efficiencies in our operations, both how we purchase materials, energy conservation, staffing consolidations, policies and procedures in the ways that we do things. We also look for different ways to maximize grant funding opportunities. You may have heard recently that our Parks Department was a recipient of a $250,000 50/50 matching grant for a project we'll be kicking off in the spring to replace all the playground equipment in Bartlett Park. It'll be a really fantastic feature. I'm very pleased with Chuck Kempton and his staff for that effort. You just heard Harry talk about partnerships with other public utilities, our partnership with the Levee District, in order to bring about the improvements to the levee and the funding for that necessary project. We also seek out partnerships with private entities. Public-private partnerships is a term you perhaps have heard from time to time, and getting those kinds of things done are a challenge, and every situation is unique. Probably the one that's most well-known right now is one we did with Mosaic downtown. While they made investments to the German American Bank building, we also worked with them to partner in the replacement of an old garage that wasn't functionally obsolete and structurally deficient as well. And that all works to the benefit of both the public as well as certainly the developer. We work with the Chamber of Commerce on developing industrial parks. Private investments purchase land, whereas public investments through a capital improvement program puts in the public infrastructure. Those kinds of partnerships are more and more common about how things get done. Some examples of collaboration. Talk a little bit about Rosecrans Memorial Airport. It's owned by the city of St. Joseph. We're a landowner out in unincorporated Buchanan County. Out there, our largest tenant is the Missouri Air National Guard, and we have operation funding that comes in from a number of sources, as illustrated on the screen. But our capital funding is always the challenge, and the most part, those funds come from several different sources. Our half-cent sales tax has provided some matching funds for quite some time, but we only rely on it for about 10% of the match on any given project because our partnerships and collaboration work so well with the state, the FAA, and our largest tenant, the Missouri Air National Guard. We would not have the runways, the taxiways, the navigational aids, and the other features around that airport that we have now to serve our general aviation and equally, if not more importantly, our corporate aircraft, if it weren't for that relationship and cooperation with the Missouri Air National Guard. And to speak a little more specifically about that, as already been mentioned, they put about $180 million worth of economic impact to the community. And because they can't advocate for themselves, we try to do what we can to be sure that their mission is continuing to be served, is growing, that they can add members, and in turn that benefits us both in a community from an economic development, from an economic impact perspective, but certainly at the airport as well in terms of growth and helping us take care of capital needs. Community Alliance Partners has put a very high priority on that, and they've had very good successes on this particular list. They were having some problems getting funded in the federal DoD budget for their weapons instructor course, which is a course offered by their Advanced Airlift Tactics Training Group. They also weren't getting programmatic funding for the AATTC itself. That's a subset, it's a training group within the unit. Some of our efforts, and as part of our trips to Washington, we had some visits with very high-ranking officials. As a matter of fact, Harry here directly confronted one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, asking him a question about the need for funding for a facility that we were expected to, that the AATCC was supposed to provide, yet they weren't receiving funding for it. And within a few weeks to a few months, that finally came about. We've replaced recently the assault strip, which we refer to as the crosswinds runway. We've partnered together for upgrades for the levees successfully, and we've also successfully put a board member from our immediate area on the Missouri MMPDC board. Specifically, that's R.T. Turner. Many of you remember him from as a previous presiding commissioner. We continue to work on several projects, however, for them. As those get done, we always try to find something else that's their next need. We're working on trying to get them a full motion simulator. The private pilots industry, commercial airliners have long recognized that it's a lot less expensive to train a pilot who's flying a 707, 747 by putting the majority of their hours in a full motion simulator, which costs a few $100 an hour as opposed to thousands of dollars an hour to actually fly the real deal. Likewise, we can save considerable military dollars if we have a full motion simulator. Trying to get new federal funding to do an upgrade. Right now they're flying H series models. We're hoping to maybe get J series models at some point in time. And I don't know what happened there.
Good job, Bruce.
I'm almost at the end, so I'll just talk it out. Anyway, there's one of the final comments I have. The council member has many responsibilities. If you did not notice, I would ask you to look back through the petition packet that you picked up. There's a memorandum from me dated September 14th, 2017, that talks a little bit about some important council responsibilities. Strategic vision, it's your responsibility to set goals, make decisions, to fill the role of being a trustee or steward for the community, to look out for the city as a whole. Sometimes you have important constituencies pulling you one way or the other, but it's important to keep the entire city in mind, what's best for the entire city. And sometimes the decision that's best for the community might not be the one that gets you reelected if you're in a district or the case may be. It's important that you're a representative, a constituent applicant, advocate. That means being responsive to the citizen, whether that's you personally or being sure that we in administration are being responsive. And that doesn't mean necessarily that everything's a yes, that getting back to them quickly and answering questions. You're a community builder. So important to foster relationships, work through differences, try to get consensus. Being a decision maker, every city council meeting you're going to be making votes. Sometimes it's very dry and boring stuff, routine business, but other times it's very important policy decisions that will have lasting influence on your community. Then lastly, oversight. We had some issues with our own school district on that particular topic, and you're responsible to hold administration accountable. Make sure that we're giving you the proper information, thorough information, and that you hold us accountable to do that. So you have multiple roles. That's okay. The last one is just a reminder that Thursday's meeting is at the Nature Center. We'll go over those various topics. We'll talk about the city charters, council manager form of governments, and several other topics there. Any questions you have? Okay.
Thanks so much, Bruce. I'd like to welcome Pat Lilly, President and CEO of the St. Joseph Area Chamber of Commerce. If you were here at the first session, you probably have heard him spoke earlier. So Pat has been the CEO since 2013, back again in 2013. His leadership in economic development and business growth and retention has been vital to our community as we move forward with quality jobs. He has a vision for workforce development in our community, which is about the best in the state of Missouri. So welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Patty. Well, it's great to be with you all again, and we're just about on time, so I appreciate those that came before me to try to keep us on time, and I'll try to keep us on time so you can go home. So I'm the last one before you get to go home this evening. I'm going to run through some slides here and just give you a bit of an introduction to the Chamber. I think most of you are familiar with the Chamber in one way or another. I've got some in the audience tonight who are actually Chamber members. I have other of you that have made a point to come and see me and talk a little bit about the Chamber and some of the things we're doing in economic development. But I always think it's good to introduce any organization in terms of, what is its mission. And ours is to create an environment that allows business to thrive and the community to prosper. And I think that really does speak to the unique relationship the Chamber of Commerce has, and that is that we succeed as a community by the businesses in the community working together to succeed. The Chamber of Commerce, what we refer to as our strategic focus, these are the 4 principal areas that we focus on a day-to-day basis. Business success is really what we think of as membership. We work to make sure that businesses in the community are successful through the activities that we do. Economic prosperity, that's the economic development work that the Chamber does. Progressive leadership, that's our advocacy work that we do, and we'll talk more about all of these here in just a moment. And then organizational strength, it talks about our organization. What do we have to do as an organization to be effective on behalf of the community? Membership. Some of you are members of the Chamber, so you know a little bit about this. We offer assistance to small business. Probably 80+% of our members are small business. In fact, as I tell people, the Chamber of Commerce is a small business. Business networking, an important part of what we do for our members, giving businesses an opportunity to network, to learn from one another, to do business with one another. Marketing. Provide opportunities for our members to market to others, whether it's people in the community or to other business. And then education and training. We have a variety of programs that we do for business to update them, to provide them information so that they can be more successful in their business. Oh, missed one here. There. Economic development. Business attraction. This is the one that usually gets most of the headlines. The new company coming to the community, a company like Schutz Containers or Daly's, our recent attraction projects that we've had in St. Joseph. The key drivers for attraction projects typically are land and buildings. Usually companies are looking initially for a building to move into. If they don't have a building, maybe land that's available to them. Business retention is work that we do every day. On the economic development side, we are probably in the top 100 businesses every year. Some of those businesses, we're there multiple times during the year to work with them on projects or other issues that they're having. We spend a lot of time with our existing businesses. We like to think that we know our businesses here in St. Joseph. It's an important role that we play in the community. For us, the critical part of business retention is making sure that we have relationships with that business so that when they're looking to expand or when they're competing with other entities in their system, like Johnson Controls, for example, they have multiple plants around the country, and so we compete with the other plants and the other locations for new investments and jobs. Fortunately, they've recently made a major investment here, creating new jobs here in St. Joseph to make what is referred to as the stop-start technology battery. Workforce development, I did pass out an article that I read just recently in a magazine talking about workforce development. That is the #1 issue in business today. I don't care if it's recruitment or existing business, it is the most important issue today. We have businesses in this community that simply just can't find people to hire with the skills that they need. It continues to be something that we work on diligently every day. A lot of people heard about the Amazon project recently. What was really interesting about that project was, one, it was so public. Most companies, when they start looking for a site It's all under the radar. You don't hear anything about it. You don't know anything about it until they make an announcement. But with Amazon, it was a talent-driven project. This project is all about looking for talent. That's what they're interested in. And you know, as you look around the country, you can begin to get a flavor of the kind of places they're looking at. Somebody asked me one day, well, hey, Kansas City's a pretty cool place. It's in the middle of the country. What do you think about that? I said, well, again, it's a talent-driven project. If you evaluate the data that's out there, out of the 50 top metropolitan statistical areas of a million-plus population, which are the only areas Amazon's looking at, out of the 50, Kansas City is rated number 29 for talent. So that just gives you an idea of the level of competition out there. Entrepreneurial growth is kind of new for St. Joe, which I find a bit ironic when you think about all the entrepreneurship that has been here through our history. The Pony Express, the saltine cracker, Aunt Jemima, the invention of hog cholera serum here, all of this entrepreneurial activity. But today in St. Joseph, we're working on this to continue to build on that history by creating new opportunities for entrepreneurs. The thing that most recently we're working on is co-working space downtown that we hope to open by the first of the year. And then product development is another part of what we do on economic development. So what is that? Well, as Bruce mentioned, we do business park development, and we also have built shell buildings in the past. It's a way of attracting people to the community. The difference is down in Kansas City, private developers do all that. The problem in St. Joe, you don't get private developers to do that, so the community has to bootstrap that. Otherwise, you don't compete at all. So this is another important part of what we do on the economic development side. Advocacy. Been some talk tonight about advocacy. The Chamber has historically been involved in government relations, advocacy work. Some of the things that we've done for years is like the Washington Fly-In or even Great Northwest Days are programs that we've implemented over the last 20 years to advocate not only for businesses in the community, but for the community as a whole. We work with the Government Relations Committee. Patty is the chair of the Government Relations Committee this year. And so we work with businesses, we work with community leaders to identify the issues that we pursue. We basically come up with priorities, and then we advocate for those along with our other partners in the community. Now, as an organization, the Chamber's been around since 1862, starting out as the Board of Trade. We have, if you're ever interested, it's pretty fascinating. We have, going back to the late 1800s, a record of the Chamber. It's in these big books that we have in our library. Actually, it's just a room off the office area. And what's fascinating about that to me, as I've gone back and looked at it periodically, we changed the name of the Chamber a few years ago. We were the St. Joseph Metro Chamber. People kept saying, well, what does Metro mean? I said, I am tired of that. Let's just call us what we are. We're the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce. But in the process of doing that, I got to thinking, well, now we used to be the St. Joseph Chamber. When was that changed? So I went back, and the first time they called us the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce, I want to say it was like in 1928. But what was fascinating about that is we have the meeting minutes from Chamber board meetings. And believe it or not, a lot of the stuff we talk about today, they were talking about in the 1920s. It's kind of interesting, really. We have 10 employees, including Steve, who works as Director of the Community Alliance. We have approximately $2 million annual budget. I feel a little insignificant after going after the city. We have our public-private partnership for economic development. Of the $2 million, it's about 2.2. Of the $2 million, about half of that goes for economic development and about half of it for membership. The million for economic development is funded by both public and private sectors. We have just about 155 local companies that put money into the Chamber for economic development, and then the city and county together basically match that. So half the money's public, half the money's private that funds economic development in St. Joseph. I'm happy to say, I'm proud to say, that after a recent membership effort this year, we have just over, almost 1,360 members. We are the third largest chamber in the state of Missouri in terms of number of members, so pretty cool. And then the chamber here in St. Joseph is what was referred to as a 5-star accredited chamber of commerce. There are, I think, about 1,200 chambers that are actually accredited across the United States, and there's probably about 2% of those that are actually 5-star chambers. So we're proud of that. That basically means we go through every 5 years we go through an accreditation process, and based on how we rate on the accreditation is where the 5-star comes in. Challenges for St. Joseph. Workforce development and talent recruitment are the biggest issues we face today. You know, I've been around this long enough to know that we've always had challenges of one kind or another. This workforce issue is a big deal. And as a community, we need to align our educational entities and the opportunities associated with them in such a way that we support the business community. At the end of the day, that's the only way we're going to be successful long term. Now, I guess if there's a good thing about this, is that we're not alone. This is an issue all over the country, but the communities that are going to win are the ones that have the ability to work in partnership together between business and education to make sure that we align education in a way that can support the jobs that we need. And you know, one of the things that's exacerbating this issue is that a lot of the baby boomers are retiring. And so not only do you have issues of new jobs being created, we had about 300 new jobs created here in St. Joseph this year with the expansions we had. But then you also have the issue of the baby boomers retiring. And so, you know, the employers are getting hit from both sides, if you will. Public schools, I don't think I need to talk anymore about that. Community appearance, you know, other than the public schools, the one thing that I hear more about than anything else is the way the community looks. The trash, the condition of the housing. I won't mention the person's name or his company, but we've had a new CEO move to town of a very large company here in St. Joseph, and he made the decision that he wanted to live in St. Joseph. He thought it was important as the president and CEO of this company to live here. The two previous ones had not lived in St. Joe. They had lived out of the community. And he moved here from the Minneapolis area. And so we got to talking, and he said, yeah. I said, so, you know, you got your family down here? He said, yeah, I've got 2 older boys, and they're out of the house, but I've got a younger son, and we have him in public school. I said, well, that's great. He said, yeah, you know, I like the public schools. He said, you know, the buildings are kind of old, but you know, if you go in and you talk to the teachers and you see what they have, he said, I was really impressed. But he said, what's the deal with your community? Why do you let your community look the way it does? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I drive around this community, and particularly in the older historic areas, and there's some beautiful houses, but the community just looks terrible. He said, why don't you all do something about that? It's like, wow, get hit in the face pretty quickly. Downtown redevelopment, a lot of good things going on downtown, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. We have to continue that momentum. And I think one thing we learned in downtown is that private money comes after public money. The public sector has to be willing to invest in infrastructure and other types of amenity to incentivize the private sector to come in and do what they do. Community leadership, getting people like you all engaged, involved, interested in making St. Joe a better place. Critical. Leadership, community leadership is one of the biggest issues in this country there is. People do not step up like they used to. And I understand that to some extent. You know, you look at this recent school district election. Boy, you don't want to step out because somebody might run over you, frankly. But the reality is community leadership is critical to the success of any community. If you look at the problems that communities have, 9 times out of 10, it goes right back to community leadership. And strategic focus for St. Joseph. This is something I've preached for a long time, have been involved in a long time. You know, I think you've heard some great presentations today. and over the last couple of weeks, but one thing always seems to stand out, and that is our ability to work together as a community to get things done is critical. Not one entity can do it by itself. In my vision, frankly, going forward is I'd love to see the community come together and come up with what, call it a strategic plan, call it whatever you want. What 4 or 5 big things does this community need to get accomplished to move forward? The kind of things that if you're sitting on the city council, every time you have a city council meeting, you think about the decisions we're making today, how does it affect how we're going to move forward on these big ideas, on these big things to make a difference? Because you're going to see a lot of stuff come across your table as a city council member, but at the end of the day, does it make a difference? How does what you do, how is the decisions you make making an impact? To me, that starts with trying to figure out what are the 4 or 5 big things that we need to accomplish as a community to move forward in the next 4 years. And I think that's really a challenge for all of us. So with that, I will end, and we'll see if we have any questions. Any questions for me? Yes?
I have a question. There is a lot of talk about the community of campus. Is there a plan? I mean, my sister lives in Houston, which was recently flooded. Her company that she works for, they do a lot of volunteer basis where they keep in mind it's a large company where every month this company is out there picking up trash and picking up, you know, in different areas. Is that what St. Joe needs to do? Do we need to get some of these larger companies?
Well,
to
I'll offer 2 comments, and I've been saying this since I was an old city manager many years ago.
Yeah.
The picking up of trash and debris is an afterthought. You know, it's kind of, think about your yard work. You know, the reason you do fertilizer is systemically you're fixing things. You're keeping bugs away and whatever. And once you have the bugs, once you have mold or whatever the case may be, you know, you can spend a lot of time picking it up. So what does that mean? Well, it means 2 things in my opinion when it comes to this issue. One is trash. You have no mandatory trash pickup in the community. And yes, we have fought battles over that for years in St. Joe. But the truth is, unless you can figure out a way to get trash out of the residential neighborhoods, you're never going to spend enough time picking up trash. I mean, you're always going to have a trash problem. This is the only community I have ever seen where it's up to you to figure out if you want to do trash. If you don't want to do trash, nobody's going to make you. Maybe a code enforcement will visit your house one day after your backyard's so full of trash that your neighbor complains. But it's inconceivable to me in a community of 80,000 people that you wouldn't have comprehensive trash pickup. That just seems crazy to me. In fact, in Texas, you couldn't do it. The state law said if you were an incorporated city of 15,000 or more, you as a city had to provide trash pickup. It was a public health issue. Second thing, condition of properties. You know, there is a way to fix that, and it's going to require political will and vision. And that is, you have a residential housing occupancy permit. And you can make that as broad as you want or as narrow as you want. If you wanted to really get at some of these bad houses, you would put in place a permit process that every rental housing unit in this community had to have a permit. And to get a permit, you had to bring an inspector in and make sure that it was up to basic code, not new housing code, not new electrical code, not new plumbing code, but that the windows were fixed, that the electricity worked. And oh, by the way, that the property was maintained in such a way that you could hold that permit. So when you've got a permit, then you could go ahead and rent the place. But if you didn't keep your property up, the city could go in there and yank your permit, and then you couldn't rent your property. You could extend this to all housing units in the city. I don't know that St. Joe's ready for that, but I can tell you, I've been a city manager in a city where we did that. We had an inspector in every housing unit, in that city over a period of 10 years, and in 10 years, the difference in the housing stock was dramatic. Not just better, it was dramatic. Things were cleaned up, houses were kept in order. You would think you wouldn't have to have government permitting involved in something like that, but the reality is you do. I think we've seen over the last, well, I'll only speak to the last 27 years. You can see what progress we've made in 27 years in cleaning up the neighborhoods.
My biggest pet peeve in my business, when I sell tires, I'm required to store my used tires, and I keep them in a trailer with doors on the back, you can't see them, the water doesn't get into them, and there's no mosquitoes. I can take you around to every other gas station or tire shop, and they're thrown out back. And we're talking 30, 40 tires at a time, and I can't stand that. I play by the rules, and the others don't, and there's nothing that ever happens to them. And you drive by them, and there's this big pile of tires right out where everybody can see them.
Part of it's rules, but,
I mean,
you know, part of it's rules, part of it's ordinances, but unfortunately, part of it is about people just accepting what is.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and when you talk to somebody who's moved in this community, and they turn around and say, why don't you clean up your community, it makes you stop. It just does.
Yes.
I don't know anybody needs to hear me preach anymore, you know, but I really, again, appreciate you all doing this. It's very important. I wish you all luck in anything that we can do at the chamber. We're there to help.
Well, we'd like to thank you all again for taking your evening. Hopefully, I know you heard some great information. The next is Thursday night, November 16th, is the fourth and final session. So Bruce is going to have the city council candidates down at the Remington Nature Center. And then Dr. Newhart is going to have the school board candidates at the administration building for the school district down at 925 Feeling, so in the boardroom. So those sessions begin at 6 o'clock. So thanks so much, you guys.
Good night, Eric.